Hello and welcome back to Tear Us Apart. On this week's episode, we'll be talking all things Dan Ashworth, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, City's charges, Pep Guardiola, a lot of different things. Obviously, a look ahead to the derby, a touch upon United's loss to Forest, all sorts, City's draw to Palace as per, a bit of everything. But we'll start off with Ashworth probably because it's the biggest of the talking points. Obviously, as we know, he's been removed by United. Dan, what was your initial reaction to that news?
I think I was like many fans and many people around United, just gobsmacked by the news because
Yeah.
it couldn't have come any more quicker than after United lost 3-2 to Forest, which we obviously will come on to. But the fact that his whole day was sort of planned around United, you think about he attended, I think it was one of the academy games at Carrington in the morning of on the morning of Saturday, and then obviously went to the game against Forest with his family, and then was seen leaving early. I believe I think he went through the press conference room and exited very much quickly than he would have used to have done at United, which some journalists apparently picked up on. Um, and then obviously we find out a couple of hours later that he's been sacked, and this goes into what United do next. Who do they bring in? Because Dan Ashworth's apparently the best of the best, but it looks like Jim Ratcliffe's got rid of him, and it's not. It doesn't seem like it's just for one reason. It's an accumulation of reasons. You think about United focusing more on the data analysis side of things, which Jim Ratcliffe really wants to go heavy on, and apparently Dan Ashworth doesn't really like that route. And he did want to keep Ten Hag. Apparently Southgate was top of his list as well. At the moment, it seems like a very strange and odd decision by Ineos.
Mm. It is. It is it's a. It's a surprise for sure. Obviously, only 4 months at the club. It sort of sets the tone as to what Ratcliffe wants to do with the club. Obviously, he wants to be quick, but there's been quite a few, as you said, sort of rumors, murmurs in the press of what the reason was. One of the first ones from TalkSport was about him wanting Southgate, and that was a, I think. But the Athletic said that who he looked at was, I think, Eddie Howe. Um, Let me
Thomas
just get
Frank,
it.
I
Eddie
think,
Howe,
was
Marco Silva, and Thomas Frank. Graham Potter was mentioned, and Ratcliffe wasn't happy that he didn't look outside of anyone he didn't know, which is that's a pretty fair sort of assessment because none of those managers are proven winners at all. So I'm not too surprised in that sense. But obviously, you got the whole Southgate thing, which is probably not true potentially, and then. Um, Obviously, he Ashworth was the one that wanted to keep Ten Hag in the summer. Jason Wilcox said no, and I think Ratcliffe has gone. That was a mistake. You can't afford to make mistakes at United, which is a bit cynical, some might say. Adam, what do you think from obviously the wider perspective of football? Has it been a bit of a shock to everyone else as well?
Yeah, because obviously United have got these new owners. They've come in. Everyone's excited about them. They're going to bring the glory days back to United without cherry picking all these great board directors to come and save the day. Even paying millions to get him out of Newcastle, having him on garden leave, whatever it was for however long it was, just to sack after 4 months. It does seem very strange. So
Mm.
it's shocking news. I think one of the first things you immediately think is it anything to do with uh Ruben Amorim and the new managerial change, if that was a factor at all, I don't know. But yeah, it is an odd decision from a rival perspective.
Yeah, with Amarim, it was said that he wasn't a universally overwhelming pick in the like unanimous, but Omar Barada had won respect from Ratcliffe, I think, and he was the one that wanted him, and that sort of
but
pushed the weight
th
through.
this
Yeah,
is
go on.
one thing that I don't get at the moment. Jim Ratcliffe's employed all of these footballing people to take in charge, yet he's still voicing his opinions on certain
Mm.
transfers and how he thinks the hierarchy should be run. At the start, when he came in, which is coming up to nearly a year now, he said that he's going to get the sporting people in place and let them work together. But it seems like he's sort of the overarching figurehead, like we've seen of Ineos, of course, but I didn't expect this amount of involvement from him to be happening at the club.
I think that's the danger. That's the worrying sign that he's gone, oh, Ashworth, you've messed up. I don't, you need to go, sort of. That he's sort of, yeah, it's concerning. I think that's the main thing. But whether Where there was also it also was said that he didn't really feel like Ashworth really worked in that hierarchy. The sort of personalities didn't fit. He didn't impress him as much as he was wanting. Hopefully, that is not just the perspective of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and it is of everyone. It sort of didn't work, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Obviously, the fact that they spent what about £2 million to get him in gardening leave, it does seem quite dramatic, but maybe it's just one of those that just genuinely did not work. And if, he is only looking at these English managers, who's to say what the sort of players he wanted to bring in is? If he's the director of football, sort of the sporting director, it's a bit concerning if he's only looking at English players. And that's why Christopher Vivell was brought in because he had that European knowledge. And that's recently there's been talk today that he's going to have an increased role in the summer window with Jason Wilcox. So that'll be that sort of thing. But I'll just push this towards Ratcliffe just in general. Do you think, for Adam, do you think he's sort of been too cynical? Because staff are worried. There's been leaks that staff are sort of a bit, irritate Ronaldo. Christmas party's gone, their bonuses have been cut. Do you think he's been come in and he's being too cynical?
Potentially. I mean, United fans criticize the Glazers for being quite hands-on, having too much of a say, I guess. And maybe it seems like Ratcliffe's trying to sort of send out a statement of intent and authority in his early months as owner, and it's like, is that the way to go about it? Probably not. I think for where United are at in this project, if you can call it that at the moment, um, it's still early days, and there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out, and a lot of fine tuning that needs to happen. I think in the hierarchy. So to so Ratcliffe probably is being too cynical, I'd say, to be making decisions like this. Like you say, even little things like Christmas parties and bonuses. It's like it's a bit confusing, really, because I think one of his first objectives should be to harmonize the club and get everyone on the same
Mm.
wavelength, and those actions seem to contradict that a bit.
Yeah. Dan, do you think that it's one of those things that he's going really cynical now, but it'll be worth it just to get it right and like getting rid of Ashworth. Maybe it just wasn't right, and it's the sort of thing that if you really hammer it in now, you can do it like it'll work. Or should he have eased it in, sort of got the club because the club isn't just the players; it's a massive club. There's a lot of people behind the scenes. Should they have got them all on board first, sort of eased his way in, or rash? What do you think?
Well, if we go back to a couple of, or rewind back to a couple of months ago, a lot of United staff were actually happy with what Ratcliffe was doing. When it became apparent that he was getting rid of 250 jobs at United, I can get the reasoning because everyone wasn't happy, and I completely understand that. But before that, they said that he thought that they were making strides and changes were happening in the club. And those changes at that time were probably the ones that needed to happen. Everyone knew certain things needed to happen. And now he's going into the more specifics, like getting rid of Fergie out of the dressing room, not paying him, which wasn't, which many people have sort of understood it. Um, but he's starting to do all these things like the ticket prices, £66 obviously is the minimum now, with a quoting that 97% of tickets have already been sold out, and the rest, no matter what your age, will be £66, which there's been a huge uproar of. Then he sacked Dan Ashworth most recently this past week, like we've said. So there's a lot of things that he's doing right now, and he's being very rash with it. And he needs to, I'm not saying he needs to explain his actions because the Glazers have never explained their actions, but it would be nice for someone from Manchester, from Failsworth, to understand the fans and the club a little bit more because if he's been a United fan his whole life, he must understand what it's like to watch United and not be in control of the club. So these certain decisions that he's making at the moment isn't making him very popular at United. And we could look back on this in the next coming months and think what a great idea to get to just revamp the sporting director position and obviously getting a new manager in. But I'll go back to it. The main issue for me is the amount of power he holds at the club now, and for him to stay on the footballing side of things when he's not the footballing side of things. I'm not saying you might as well have Ed Woodward in charge, but it's still a businessman like scenario, isn't it? If he's the one who's having the final call.
Mm. It's a dangerous precedent. I'll end it on the fact that today the Mail have said that Sir Alex Ferguson personally asked Omar Barada to intervened to ensure Sir Matt Busby's family kept their places at Old Trafford amid a lack of communication from United over the summer. I think that says it all, really. Obviously staff cuts, all that, but they couldn't even guarantee
But
the
yeah,
second best United manager of all time's family got a seat at Old Trafford, and obviously Ferguson got his pay gone. Yeah, I think it's a worrying time for anyone in and around the club, and we'll just have to see what happens next, really. But we'll move on to City, I guess. Well, it was a bit of a weird week. Obviously, you won midweek, which was the first time in a long time. Must have felt like a weird feeling, eh? And then you drew again. So
You know what
it's
that's like.
oh yeah. So how do you firstly sort of assess the situation right now? Do you feel
On the
like it was
pitch.
well, yeah, on the pitch, yeah. Do you
Yeah.
feel like it was a would you have drawn that a year ago, or was that just a testament to where you're at right now?
Yeah, I think that Forest game was, me and Dan spoke about it. I think it was a good performance from City. Impressive win, 3-0. Good to end the winless run. And we played very well. Ake and Akanji both started, but came off through injury. So Pep again was forced to rotate the squad. I think that's kind of having to rotate so much every week is never a good thing because players can't build that rhythm and consistency playing alongside new players every week. So the injury list keeps piling up. I think if Ake and Akanji start, certainly if Kyle Walker doesn't start, then that second goal doesn't go in. And I think there's another couple of stupid goals to concede from City. We fought back both times, which give him credit for. But I think, like I say, I think probably last year we do win that at Sellers Park. Well, we did win at Sellers Park last year. So I think it's kind of maybe we don't win it with Ake and Akanji. I personally think we probably would, but I think it just shows that, like, for example, last year we probably had to rotate at Sellers Park, and we still got the win. Whereas now when we rotate, things are a bit uncertain. I think it kind of shows the underlying cracks in the team, some of the holes in the squad building over the last couple of years, and certainly without Rodri, a lack of legs in the midfield seems to be the main issue, as that defense is being exposed far too often. But even then, you probably saw on social media the report that in the live training that you were doing before Juventus,
Mm,
we
I was going to mention
missed
that,
like
yeah.
4 penalties without a keeper. I saw it. I think from the video, I saw it looked like they were all trying to find the top corner and
Crossbar or
then they all
something, yeah.
missed. So that might explain something about it. But yeah, I think no one's doing their job correctly at the moment at City. So it's still uncertain times. So yeah, doesn't make me confident for the derby, but you're not exactly in a much better position.
No, no, we're not. Do you think teams now go see the fixture against you and go, do you know what, we can get something here where for years they didn't?
Yeah, definitely. No, they've seen our vulnerability, our weaknesses, and they fancy their chances, and why wouldn't they? I think that combined with City's lack of confidence right now, they probably have a bit of self-doubt. I think that's probably explains a bit why we're struggling so much at the moment, and hopefully it ends at some point soon. I
Mm,
mean, a point at Sellers Park isn't a terrible result, but in for where we are, we need to be getting a win really. Else
mm.
Liverpool just gonna. Well, I didn't think the title was really on anyway, but yeah, it seems does I think it's gonna be a tough year for City.
Yeah, I mean, in recent years, you have struggled at Selhurst Park, to be fair. Um, that's always been a little bit of a bogey team, but with the way you are, you really needed to win to get a bit of momentum, and you didn't. And that puts us in a very interesting position. Obviously, United, off the back of what, two losses in a row as well. So, well, you won, but bad form for City, bad form for United, and then a derby on Sunday. So it'll be an interesting game, Dan. How do you feel about the derby coming up? Are you confident or are you worried?
probably the most confident from United's perspective ever. Well, not ever. Sorry, not ever.
Ever, cracking.
No, not ever. Sorry, in recent years, should I say? Especially probably since. So yeah, probably since Pep came in. This is probably the most comfortable I've felt in United that they could get a win or a draw or something out of the game. just because like Adam mentioned about the vulnerabilities there that City have got. And if United were going to win against City, it would be during this spell because this spell has not come up for the past couple of well, since Pep's been at
Would you
City, really.
would you not say you were confident? You know, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer
That's what I
has
was going to say.
arguably the best record against Pep Guardiola, I think, ever. I think. Were you never confident in those times? Because United beat them quite a few times.
I always saw those games as a surprise because of how United did in the league, especially in those seasons. And I know they came second under Ollie, didn't they? But I don't know why. I just think because we've seen the lead up to what City have been playing against and up until Sunday now when the derby is. And when in those games, we've obviously seen the results. And when I've been watching them, I've thought that United can get at the City team more than ever. And under Ollie, you could say that, but yeah, like I go back to it, I say that it's came as a surprise when United beat them because the amount of times that City just obviously, I know they just dominated the ball, but that surprise element, I don't think is going to be there as much if United do go and win this game. I know obviously they lost 3-2 to Forest last weekend, but you have to look at how City are doing at the moment, and I think this could be the game that United do get a result.
Interesting. Do you think just to sort of weave in the news of obviously the charges, the case has been finished now, and they say what an early verdict in January, and it's gone up to 130 over a 14-year period. That's from Martin Ziegler, who was like the main man that sort of broke the news many years ago. He also mentioned that he believes any appeal that would happen would drag on until next season, which just feels like this thing will never end. But do you think, Adam, that potentially with it sort of looming in the back of their heads, this may have a psychological effect on the players at all, or do you think it's just completely other reasons?
No, I think this case has been going on for what, 18 months now. And I think, and if anything, it helps us win the treble because it spurred us on. It gave us that us against the world mentality. We went and won it all. And I think the players have just been, it's been going on for so long. The players are used to it being in the background now and they don't really read anything into it. Um, the fact that the hearing's over, yeah, I think the players are, they're all professional athletes. Well, I'll say they've got a good mentality. They've shown that over the years. Maybe not right now. Maybe it's wavering a bit, but I think they know not to read into these things, and they're just gonna wait until the verdict drops. But yeah, that's all you can do in it, really. And I don't, yeah, to answer your question, I don't think it's gonna affect the players at all in terms of on the pitch. Um, I do think, I think to counter what Dan was saying, I think obviously I can see why you'd be confident coming against this current City team, but you also got to account for the United side of it in terms of
Yeah.
performance. That performance against Arsenal wasn't great. Against Forest, it wasn't good. There's probably more vulnerabilities in United still than there are in City. Maybe I don't know. We've conceded more goals than United, which is quite funny. But yeah, there's definitely. I think if all goes to plan, it could be well, not to plan, but if all goes how we think it could go, there could be plenty of goals because both
Hmm.
teams don't know how to defend at the moment. It seems so.
Hmm.
Manchester City don't know how to score really. So yeah, I think it's gonna. This is probably one of the most unpredictable derbies I'd say
Yeah.
in recent memory, and that usually should make for an exciting game. But derbies are always a nerve-wracking one. But I'll be glad to be back at the Etihad because I've not been for ages.
Mm. Yeah,
I mean,
you just didn't want to go.
Yeah,
He's been available, but he just didn't want to go. You know,
yeah,
great
form
fan.
was too bad, you know.
Amarin's blueprints there though to beat City. Obviously, we saw the 4-1 against them in the Champions League when he was at Sporting. And I'm not saying that this current group of
We beat
United
him
players are going
five
to go
nil
and win
in the Champions
4-1.
League with Sporting, so
Mm.
swings and roundabouts in
But
it.
yeah,
You've
but
not
if
got
it's
Gyökeres,
more
but yeah,
recently though, more recently in a 4-1 game, and
against this City, yeah.
If United defend how they did against Arsenal in that first half for the full 90 minutes, I reckon they can get a result. But like you say, turning it back on to the United side of things, there you're completely right. There are vulnerabilities there, definitely. And it's who exposes it the best at the end of the day.
Mm.
Yeah, it's bound to be, well, I say bound to be. It'll hopefully be an exciting game with several goals. We'll stick with City just to go for one more on City. Obviously, Pep Guardiola today has come out. Oh, I do apologise. Something a tickle at the back of my throat, shall we say? But Pep Guardiola today has said that he wouldn't manage another team. I'm not talking about the long-term future, but what I'm not going to do is leave Man City, go to another country, and do the same thing as now. I wouldn't have the energy, the thought of starting somewhere else, all the process of training and so on. No, no, no. Maybe a national team, but that's different. So I want to leave it and go and play golf, but I can't. A time will definitely come when I feel like it's enough. I'll definitely stop then. Now that is a very, very interesting quote from Pep Guardiola. Adam, does that make you sort of feel quite good that he's going to sort of end his club career at City?
Yeah, yeah, because it's been a special. Well, it will have been a special decade by the time he leaves. And he's in his 50s now. Like he's, of course, he could do more years if he wanted to at club level, but I think having achieved what he's achieved and having to demand this level of success for so many years is going to be draining. And
Mm,
I think he has every right to go and say I'm not going to manage any of the clubs now, and I can perfectly see why he would do that. And that's why to me that news doesn't really come as much of a surprise. But um, yeah, it'd be a sad day when he leaves, but that day is not coming for another couple of years yet. So yeah,
You never know.
I'm
On
quite.
recent form, who knows?
Hmm? Yeah, yeah. Nah, yeah. If we lose this derby 5-0 or something, nah. Yeah, it's good to see him end his club managerial career with City.
yeah. Do you think if there was a crisis at Barcelona that he'd maybe go back to them?
Maybe in a few years, but I
Yeah,
think
not right
he'd.
now, but
No, no. I mean, like even after say he left City tomorrow, I don't think he'd go back into club management for like 3 years at
no, no.
least.
I think
If
it'd be
Barca
quite a
came
while.
calling in a few years, then maybe. But uh, I think it'd take an extraordinary circumstance. But I don't know.
Mm. It
And
depends
substantial
what sort.
fee.
Yeah, depends what sort of itch he's got. If he's the sort of guy that, like, when he tries to stop, he can't stop. He has to always be
Yeah,
doing something. Then he might see himself like moving swiftly back to football. But as he did say there, a national team, that's different. Well, what national team is a different ball game? Obviously, for years, for some reason, there was always rumours of England, but I
and
very much
Brazil as well.
Brazil would be an
Definitely
interesting one,
Spain
but
will be bottom of his list because he's Catalan.
Catalan, yeah. So I don't know
But
who he would be affiliated with nationally, but whoever they
Well,
got would be buzzing.
what Saudi Arabia hosting the World Cup in 2030?
No,
Would
surely
would
not.
one of them try and pay him out?
I don't think he's that much of a
uh,
We've seen it
sort of
with
guy.
we've seen it with Poch and America for the next World Cup. They had to bring in someone big.
But Poch's career was sort of
I
yeah.
know I'm not comparing Poch to Pep in
no.
no means, but like I'm just saying that
And
when it's your
America's a bit of a
host nation,
project as well. Like there's actually potential there. Whereas like if you used
Mm,
to go to like a Saudi Arabia, sure they impressed at the last World Cup, but they did exit the group stage, and it's not like they've
but
got a great footballing infrastructure.
but
Whereas America kind of is building that, and Poch has got a project. So
but we'll end on the recent, well, as if not all of this has been recent, but on something that came out today about Marcus Rashford. It was Pletty Goal, who um, they're not the Athletic for a source, but they're not terrible either. Them saying United would be open to selling Rashford at the latest by summer, and they'd be open to top offers in the winter. The club acknowledges development under Amarim, but consider him definitely not unsellable. And then Luke Edwards from The Telegraph said a move to Saudi Arabia for Rashford is an option, while a change of country and environment in France with Paris Saint-Germain has also been mooted. Um, so that's an interesting one. Obviously, Rashford has been so he's sort of been linked away for quite a few years now. Obviously, he's been at the club for donkey's years. Dan, do you think it's maybe time to part ways? We've been quite vocal about Rashford needing to do more. Do you think now is the right time?
I think I'd probably give him until if I was Ruben Amorim, give him until the end of the season, see how he performs. Um, if he gains any if he gains any higher levels in his performance, then obviously keep him. How many times have we heard the rumours of Rashford going to PSG though in the past couple of years?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like I say, if he doesn't up his numbers or not even just up his numbers, just his general performance under Amarin, Amarin will get rid of him. That's the thing. Amarin's brutal like that. And I know Rashford's got some stuff going on in his personal life, and that's been affecting him for the past couple of years.
Too long that.
Uh, but it's
You can't
not
do that as a professional.
not even to do with like his girlfriend or anything like that. But I can see why it can maybe affect his performance, but equally, you have to look on the other side of it and think he's getting paid a lot of money, and there's a high expectation at Manchester United for you to perform. And for a local lad, you could say at the moment he's not doing it in the United shirt like many would want him to do. What club he would suit, I'm not too sure. Um, but like I say,
Bundesliga.
there has to be, yeah, there has to be an improvement um, until the end of the season because, yeah, like I say, Amarin will definitely get someone in to replace him just like that.
Yeah, I think it would be a massive sale because it feels like almost a turning of the tide at United. Him going feels like he's presumably the last one apart from Luke Shaw from like that era sort of thing from the Louis van Gaal like that sort of tenure, Jose Mourinho, that vibe. So it would sort of feel like the end of that era if particularly if Luke Shaw maybe has moved on with his injury proneness. So yeah, it'd be very interesting, but I doubt he would get sold in January just because it's such
Yeah,
a big deal. And I think Amarin would like to see if he can sort of make him into the player he wants him to be. So I guess we'll just have to see for that, but it could be something to keep an eye on. But that is all we've got time for today on this week's episode. I'm sure next week will be an interesting one, talking about the derby when United batter City, of course. And that'll be a lovely clip, which may come back to bite me, but we'll see. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one next week and it'll be very exciting and we'll just have to wait and see. But yes, thank you very much for watching. Check us out on all our social medias at Tear Us Apart. Give us a follow, give us a rate, and yes, we'll see you next week. Goodbye.